Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Newark and Sherwood series, a district of 84 civil parishes right in the centre of Nottinghamshire. Come with me as we delve into one of them. Happy New Year, people in Newark and Sherwood. It's time for 2023's videos here in this district of Nottinghamshire. And today we're in one of the biggest villages in the county. In fact, it's one of the biggest villages in the country. It's late November, it's quite cold and chilly, even though I don't have my coat on. I think I'm fine just like this. I'm beginning on Main Street, outside this building right here. Now that's quite an important building and we'll learn why in a moment. In times past, there was a very important engineer who lived in that house. We'll talk about that as we walk around Balderton. This Newark and Sherwood video is sponsored by Past Days, a family history blog by June Terrington. You'll find a link in the description. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Welcome to Balderton, which you might not think is a village, but it most certainly is. With a massive population of almost 10,000, this is one of the largest villages in Nottinghamshire. Many consider this to be a suburb of Newark, which is almost adjacent to the northwest. Balderton is split into two areas. These are Old Balderton in the south and New Balderton in the north. The land it lies upon is mainly rich alluvial clays. Historically, gravel and sand were excavated in New Balderton, and the resulting pits have now been turned into a lakeside park. Gypsum is still quarried nearby, and there's more on that next week. The village is overwhelmingly urban, but it's surrounded by mostly agricultural land. Its name has obscure roots, but may derive from the Norse god Baldur or Baldur. The village is likely of Anglo Saxon origin, signified by the suffix "tun". In the Domesday Book, the place is called Balderton, and it's described as a barewick, which means a dependent hamlet of Newark. By 1291, it was spelt Balderton. By the 1840s, when its population was a little over 1,000, large parts of the village were owned principally by the Duke of Newcastle, who was lord of the manor. It's grown a bit since then, so let's go and see what it's like now. Trust me, it's big. We start on Main Street at this house. This is Balderton Old Hall, where Sir Frank Whittle, the inventor of the jet engine, once lived. Whilst living here, Whittle used the former RAF Balderton, located to the village's south, for the development of the jet engine in 1943 and 1944. The former airfield isn't in Balderton Parish, but it will feature in next week's episode. For now, let's carry on walking down Main Street. Our next stop is a parish notice board. This is easily the biggest one we've covered so far in Newark and Sherwood, and it's officially in the books. This notice board stands directly in front of the library. Built in 1856, this was one of the village's Methodist chapels. It became a library in 1951. Over the road are some almshouses. These were built and endowed in 1889 at the bequest of Alice Bakewell, who also once lived at the Old Hall. There's much more to Main Street yet. We've only come sort of halfway down it at this point, and halfway down it you find this, the Church of St Giles. Let's talk a bit about this next. St Giles's Church was originally built in the 12th century and enlarged considerably in the 13th and 14th centuries. It features a peal of 8 bells and 2 Romanesque-style porch doorways, both dating from about 1140. One faces north and the other south. The more imposing north entrance is topped by a niche containing a figure which is possibly St Giles himself. Its tower is 13th century and is topped by a substantial spire. St Giles also has a community centre which is also located on Main Street opposite this pub. This is Chester's, which dates from 1886. The community centre was originally a Victorian schoolhouse. Many of Balderton's local groups, both religious and non-religious, meet here. Next door is another pub. This is the Rose and Crown. We've only got one more pub to see, but it's a long way around this route yet. That was good timing. I was just about to talk about buses because there's a bus stop just there, just past it, and this bus turned up, the number 3 to Hortonville. It's one of the buses you can catch in Balderton. Okay, let's go over the crossroads now towards Mount Road. So now we're heading for a crossroads where Main Street meets London Road. Still on Main Street, this is the current Methodist Church. It stands on the site of the original 1815 building. In front of it, we have the village's war memorial. Just before the crossroads is a post office, closed when I passed it, but don't worry, this one is alive and well. It was just early in the morning. Now we've hit London Road, or the B6326 if you will. Most of Balderton's amenities are on this road, like for example this vet. London Road is the former Great North Road. It was built in 1767 as a turnpike, and in 1923 it became the A1. There's some more on that later, but for now we've come across the crossroads, and off Mount Road is Balderton Cemetery, which was a tad more peaceful than that busy crossroads was. Okay, so I'm in a cemetery, so I've taken my hood down. Got to be respectful. I quite like this this garden here. Look how colourful this looks at the moment. That's pretty awesome. Well done, everybody. Giving Balderton a splash of colour in late November. Now there's a board here. I'm not quite sure what this is, so we're going to have a read of it. Let's see. Oh, may their memory be blessed, it says. So I don't know whether this is like a war memorial or just in general for everybody who's in the cemetery. It might be both actually. Same message, isn't it? Okay, so now to head out of the cemetery, which is going to be this way. We're heading towards a medical centre, and this next part of the route is primarily residential. The south of Balderton is a very residential area. It has a mix of housing styles from various periods. This is Lowfield Lane, built between 1967 and 1975. Despite being mainly housing, this area does have a couple of landmarks. Here's Balderton's Health Centre, for example, also on Lowfield Lane. There's also a Salvation Army church on the corner of Mead Way. Mead Way is much newer than Lowfield Lane, and it too is mainly residential. It does feature a small play park though. It's also a dead end, but what we're doing here is heading for a footpath taking us away from this residential area. We're entering the site of Lowfield Works, where a company called Flowserve, a major manufacturer of pumps, used to be located. Well, this wasn't part of the plan. The footpath's closed. I need to get up there. That is my route through here and up that way. I can't see any reason why this is blocked off, to be honest with you, because it seems all the work is taking place over there. I'll see if there's a way around. Basically what I'm doing here is I'm passing Newark Flowserve Football Club, which is behind here. So I'll see if I can get across onto that road somehow. Eventually I found a way around the closed footpath through the site of what used to be the home ground of Newark Flowserve Football Club. The club still exist, but they no longer play here. Since 2022, they're also known by a different name, Newark and Sherwood United. Their ground, Lowfields, has been sold to a property developer, as has most of the area around it. It seems Balderton will soon be getting bigger. As for Flowserve, it can trace its roots back to 1785 when they were set up in London as Simpson & Co. In 1917, they became Worthington Simpson. The company would build their main works here in Balderton in 1899. They made pumps, many of which were used in municipal waterworks. Next we have a footpath which runs under Horton Lane, and if you're a regular, you might already have an inkling as to what this used to be. Okay, so you may have guessed already, this is an old railway line. This was the Bottisford to Newark line. And even though I'm familiar with Balderton, I didn't even know this existed until I researched it before I came here today. It used to run to Bottisford in Leicestershire, and we're heading north up the former line, which is now a footpath and a cycleway. And this used to join the East Coast Main Line. And speaking of the East Coast Main Line, that does run through Balderton, but we're not going anywhere near it today, so the channel's favourite railway line will not make an appearance in this episode, despite the fact that it's here. So we're walking along this for a short distance, and our next major landmark is a lake. Whilst the East Coast Main Line runs to Balderton's north and east, this line, the Bottisford to Newark line, once ran to the west. Now long gone, Sustrans have since resurfaced the trackbed. It's possible to walk all the way to Newark Northgate railway station from here. It borders Balderton Lake, owned and maintained by Balderton Parish Council. The lake was originally dug as a huge gravel pit. It supplied gravel, ballast and sand used in the development of the local area. The pits that were dug, though, were much larger than the present lake. Some areas were completely infilled and are now housing developments. A local fishing club rent fishing rights from the council, and as such the lake is a popular spot for anglers. However, boats are not permitted on the lake. This seems to be something of a contentious issue locally, if this sign is anything to go by. So as you know, I enjoy your little anecdotes, little stories that you can tell about certain places. I've got one here about Balderton Lake, and that is when I had my proper job and I was meter reading, I used to cover Newark, and that's why I know it so well. And the funny thing is about this lake, when I did Balderton, I used to start really early in the morning on this estate. It was easy to do that because all the houses around here have got meter boxes in the wall. You might just be able to see these two houses here. You can see there's a meter box there and one there. And the great thing about the outside box is that you can read them without having to knock on the door. And so you can start really early in the morning and you don't have to disturb anybody. And because of that, it was usually dark, which means I've never seen the lake in the daylight before. How about that?
All right, darling. Yeah.
Now we head back towards London Road via this street, Horton Lane, which runs to the south of the lake and connects Balderton to Hortonville. You can tell by the width of London Road that this was the Great North Road and subsequently the A1, rerouted to avoid the village in the 1960s. As mentioned earlier, London Road is where a lot of Balderton's amenities are. The further north you go, the more commercial it becomes. Amongst other things, there's a dentist, an MOT garage, a shopping centre, as well as several small independent shops and a care home. There's also some schools along here, including this day nursery. Education in Balderton was historically centred around Main Street. Nowadays, most of its schools are on London Road, including John Hunt Primary and Nursery School, which partly occupies an old school building dating from 1903. Now, on the subject of schools, there's a couple more to see on this route yet, and I'm heading for one of them a bit further up towards Newark. That's our next major landmark. There are a few things on the way, including a supermarket, a Lidl's, which I can just see there. We'll get a bit closer to it, and then you can see what it's like. It's a Lidl's, what do you expect? It's a supermarket. A few other bits and bobs, but we're heading for a school primarily next. This is one of Balderton's main shopping areas. The building in shot now is called the Lakeside Centre, which stands opposite a Lidl's supermarket. There used to be a petrol station where Lidl is now. In front of it is a clock, placed here for the millennium in the year 2000. Moving on, here's the other pub, the Grove. This is the only one of the Great North Road's former coaching inns now remaining in Balderton. The name Grove once extended to a local school, Grove Comprehensive. It's since joined with Newark High School, forming this, Newark Academy. The former Newark High School site is now used as Newark Academy's sixth form centre, and within the Academy's grounds is the now disused Lily and Stone School. You can sort of see that here to the left of shot. It's been suggested the land around it could become the new permanent home for Newark and Sherwood United. Okay, via a footpath we've now hit Smith Street. Good name, good name. We're heading for Balderton's sports area now. The playing fields somewhere down there. Welcome to Balderton Playing Field, sometimes known as Coronation Street Park, owing to the fact it's at the end of Coronation Street. The park has it all: football pitches, a cricket pitch, a bowling green, a huge playground, and its own dedicated communal building. That building is where the parish council is based, according to this sign anyway. There's another building around the back of this, which is the location of a dance school. This is the Charlotte Hudson School of Dance, which is based both here and at the Village Hall in Elston. There's a local connection for you. The playing field is now Balderton's only real leisure facility. It used to have a leisure centre located close to Newark Academy. Named Grove Leisure Centre, it opened in 1968 and served the village until 2016. A year later, the abandoned buildings burned down in a suspected arson attack. Well, it looks like Balderton's cricket club are quite successful. In 2021, they were South Notts Cricket League Division A champions. I wonder if they were in 22 as well. They were looking for players last season, so yeah, I wonder if they found any, and I wonder if they retained their title. Okay, now we are heading down this footpath, down the side of the playing field. And there's not much left, to be honest with you. Another sort of few housing estates, another school, and back to Main Street. That's really about it. I've been going for about 2 hours, which is pretty good. I thought this might take me about 2.5, so I wasn't too far out. So yeah, last section, let's go. Our last section is very Olympic themed, and you'll see why shortly. Here's a nice old house though first on Macaulay Drive, called The Cottage. It stands next to the Brisbane Court shopping precinct. This is much smaller than the Lakeside Centre, but I prefer this, to be honest. Opposite these shops we find the Olympic trees. On the 28th of June 2012, the Olympic torch relay passed through Balderton. The parish council planted 5 trees, each with foliage of a different colour, matching that of the Olympic rings: red, blue, green, black and yellow. There was also a competition held in each of the local schools to design a poster for this display, including nearby Tutor Eade Primary School. And yards away is Tutor Eade, which originally opened in 1964 on Main Street, and it moved to its present buildings in 1967. So in stark contrast to earlier when I was talking about metering and outside boxes, I remember these flats vividly, because the gas ones were alright, because you can see they're all outside, but to get to the electric ones was a bit of a pain. Getting into these blocks of flats was not easy. Okay, we are about done, because from here there's a footpath to the right, just here. So we'll take that, and it leads sort of around in a sort of a little half circle, semicircle, back onto Main Street, where we began about 2.25 hours ago. Be about 2.5 by the time I get back to the car. And yeah, I've really enjoyed that. A bit of a trip down memory lane for me. Some things I've never seen, and lots to talk about. When we get to the car, I'll put the camera on the dashboard and I'll drive down towards my next one, because everything sort of south of Main Street I haven't walked around that, so I will drive down the old Great North Road to the next one and just catch that with the camera on the dash so that I don't miss anything out. One thing I know I haven't got is a rather large Sainsbury's, which is between here and the A1. So yeah, that's been Balderton. I do hope you've enjoyed it. So to finish, we're taking a drive down London Road towards the next parish. On the right, but not really in shot, is the big Sainsbury's supermarket. London Road is primarily residential towards the modern day A1, and the further south you go, the newer, generally speaking, the housing becomes. Balderton Parish used to be much bigger and used to include the site of RAF Balderton, as well as Balderton New Hall, but these days that's not the case. However, in the next episode, we'll get a look at both of those things, because the area containing them now forms its own civil parish. The locals will already know just from that what the next episode is going to be. Anyway, this has been the Parish of Balderton, and I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.